everybody, and welcome to segment 2 of the Hearthstone Meta Hype. I'm here with Ecor, and we were talking about the best classes on his segment. So go over and check that out. Make sure that you give this video a thumbs up and also subscribe to the channel if you like this kind of content. So Ecor, you did watch the video that I did on the Nerfs, right? Is that what
yeah, I did watch it. He basically talked about not only the cards that I talked about in a previous video and the ones that are more generally looked at as needing a nerf, but you looked at 3 other cards I thought were pretty interesting actually, and could be a nice way to like nerf the class without nerfing the core cards, like the ones that would really be important for the deck to run. Like nerf a secondary card that's still really strong but wouldn't cause the deck to not function anymore. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, it was kind of a different take on things, and it really was based off of like your list, like you had done there. So anybody that hasn't seen that, make sure you get on over to Ecor's channel and check out the nerfs that he talked about. They were based on that, but we've always talked about that cards in the meta that are super powerful and OP and broken a lot of times are that way because of the way that the support cards around them are, and decks that become really oppressive have that problem because of the supporting cards. And the first card that I wanted to talk about was, well, I talked about Night of Anointment, I talked about First Day of School, and Mask of Cthulhu. So let's talk about First Day of School, the first one. And what it is that card is 0 mana, and the 1 mana minions that are out there are so good. There's like lots of really good 1 mana minions that you could draw, and it gives you just a lot of tempo. That card is just so good for the class. What are your thoughts on like how that plays into like tempo and Hand of a Doll and all kinds of different things? Like, what do you think about that?
I've always thought First Day of School was really strong, especially now, because it's similar to the reason why Spell Mage is good. Like the pool of bad cards is much smaller, and because of power creep, like all of the cards on average that you're going to get from it are good. Like looking at a list of all of the 1 cost like minions, all of them are really solid. Like every single one of them is good. You could get even if it's just like a Battle Fiend and you're probably gonna have a weapon to attack. Crimson Sigil Runner, you can make an outcast and draw a card. Spirit Jailer's a 1/3. Enchanted Owl is a 2/2, or Raven, sorry, is a 2/2. Gibberling, in a class that has a ton of pump spells and spells in general and cheap secrets, Gibberling could pop off. Like I'm trying to look for a bad 1-drop, and like the worst ones I guess are like Babbling Book, that's a 1 mana 1/1, but the effect is still strong. Like none of the 1-drops are bad.
It's like
I'm just going down the list.
Yeah, like you get like a lot of generation. Like there are cards that will generate cards, like the Outcast card that you spoke of, like that's just such a, like you get that's just so awesome. And anything that has more than 1 health will have the chance to really stick around on turn 1 and turn 2, maybe even turn 3, and it's such an easy target to then buff up with something. And like I said, there's just so, and like you said, there's so many good cards that are in there. There's 57 1 mana cards, of which 27 of them I think are just by health alone are good.
Yeah.
And then there's another bunch of cards that on top of those that are good because they give effects and do card generation. So that card just really needs to be looked at, and I think that it could help out. But the problem that I have with it, I don't know of any way that you could nerf it. I don't know any way you could change it without destroying it.
In your video you said nerf it to 1 mana. Potentially, I think that would kill it. But making it generate just 1 random 1-cost minion, I mean, that's still also bad as well.
I said both those,
That's still also pretty bad because you just get 1 random 1-drop. At that point, you might as well just run an extra 1-drop. You might as well just run like 2 Righteous Protectors instead and just call it a day. Or just run like a broomstick and something. So yeah, I think it would be hard to nerf. I don't exactly know how they would nerf it. I think it's one of those situations where you just have to wait for them to print some more like weak 1-drops. But because of power creep, I also don't know if they're ever going to print any more weak 1-drops ever again. Like I'm looking down the list and none of them are bad. Like I'd be fine with almost any of these things being the 1-drops that I get. Like I guess one of the worst ones is the 1 mana 1/2 Kindling Elemental. Battlecry, the next elemental you play costs 1 less because I have no elementals. But at the end of the day, it's still a 1 mana 1/2 that gets pressure on the board, and with 2 HP I just pump it with Hand of a Doll next turn. It's fine. So I don't know how I would nerf this card, because I think that nerfing the mana or the number of minions it would give would kill the card. Or maybe make it 1 mana and shoot, how do you nerf it with just 1 mana?
See, it's impossible. That's what I'm saying. That's why it's just so like, wow. You see, like those cards and balancing things is just so difficult, because when you put a card like that into the meta, then it just changes like like how you can balance things. It's like basically it's non-nerfable. You kill it or you play it. You know what I mean? Like that's it. Like it's just either dead or it remains as it is. So we could
like
don't wreck your brain too hard. We'll let the audience think of talk about it if they want to in the comments below. But I just don't think you'll find the solution. There's just no good way to nerf it. It's just is what it is. And then the next card up was Knight of Anointment. This is the 1 mana card.
I think what you said about that was really good.
Share your
because you
thoughts.
basically brought up a lot of other cards that draw. There was the Cage Match Custodian, I think, the 2 mana 2/2 that draws a weapon for Shaman. And there was the Star Crier, I think it's called, for Mage, which is a 2 mana 3/1 Death Rattle draw a card. One you didn't mention, but I think should also be mentioned, is like Novice Engineer and Loot Hoarder, which were in the game have been in the game for a long time and are 2 manas for like bad stats, draw a card. And then you have the Knight of Anointment, and it's a 1 mana 1/1 draw a card, which you might not think is that big of a deal, but just think about what happened to Libram Paladin when they made the Alder Attendant the 1 mana 1/3, for those of you who don't know. And they changed that from a 2 mana 2/3, which is a pretty decent stat line, by the way, to a 1 mana 1/3. Just by reducing the mana cost of this card to accelerate the tempo, literally made Paladin the strongest class or the second strongest class in the game for the next like 6 months after this buff, basically. And so having that extra, being able to draw that card 1 turn sooner, say you play it, which means you draw maybe Hand of a Doll, so you curve out into a Hand of a Doll, make it a 3/3 on turn 2, and draw 2 cards in total now off of the Anointment and Hand of a Doll, is just something that can really easily snowball. But if you made it a 2 mana 2/2, I think it would just be better in general, because you'd have to choose between like that and the sword, right? On turn 2, it'd be like, do I want to play the Anointment or the sword to get secrets out, or Crab Rider, or the egg? Like it would just, you have to make a choice. It wouldn't be as fast and consistent, and giving Paladin a weaker turn 1 but follow it up with some better turns after that, I think would make it more balanced. Because right now it comes right out of the gate swinging, and I think making it swing a little bit less on turn 1 would just be helpful.
Yeah, and the thing is that if, let's say though that it went to 2/2/2, right? The stats, it's not entirely terrible to play on turn 5.
2 mana 2/2 that draws. It's still a better Novice Engineer, better Loot Hoarder. It draws you a specific card, so it's similar to a Cage Match Custodian. And it's in a class that, to be fair, shouldn't have that much draw anyway. Like that's Paladin's thing. Decent dudes, good buffs, good stat lines, but limited draw. That's been Paladin's thing for a while. And so if you nerf the draw cards, it'll just fit Paladin more.
Exactly. So that card is just something that I think is kind of under the radar, but it's kind of interesting to talk about for those reasons. And then the last card that I think that is interesting is Mask of Cthulhu. How many times has a mage cleared out your board and then dropped down
stupid Mask of Cthulhu,
and done 10
they
damage
clear
to
the
your
board,
face?
they devolving missiles, get rid of most of your stats, and then drop Mask of Cthulhu, kill my board, and do 6 or 7 damage to me. Or they just do like straight 10 or 11 damage to me right off the bat. It's so annoying.
Yeah. So it's just this card is kind of like the one that like really won't, out of the 3 that I did on there, I don't really think that this one will be touched, because if they do something with like Incanter's Flow,
there are other cards that they should probably know. Like the problem is when they do this for like 5 or 6 mana, but I think it's 7 mana. It's at least okay. But yeah, they're definitely more important cards, like you were saying. Yeah,
there's just more important cards, but it's only nerfed if the other cards that we think are going to get nerfed don't get nerfed. You understand what I'm saying? It's like it becomes really powerful when you could play this for 5 mana because of Incanter's Flow twice, and it's always ending up in your hand as well, and as well as like even with Deck of Lunacy, then this card appears in your hand for 4 mana, right, and stuff like that. So it's just kind of interesting. So it'll probably won't be touched, but I just wanted to mention it because based on what was in the meta now, that it just seems like it could use a nerf. But this is kind of things that I like to talk about. Like we talked about in eCore section, we talked about like all the statistics and stuff like that. I'm a big fan of Hearthstone statistics and going over like Hearthstone replay, creating decks and everything. And I'm also, that's main thing that really thrills me about Hearthstone and playing standard. Those are the 2 things. So having said that, we're going to get on out of here, and you know what we always do, stay hype, and we'll see you next week.